Hi, I'm Peter James, and my most recent novel is Stop Them Dead, the 19th in the Roy Grace series. I've also just had published a revised volume of all my short stories under the title Twist of the Knife. In this video, I'm going to be talking about my central character, Detective Superintendent Roy Grace, who is head of major crime for Sussex. Essentially that makes him head of homicide and all other serious crimes. But he also, because he likes to be hands-on, continues to work on part of the rota of senior investigating officers. So basically doing hands-on investigations himself every few weeks. When we first meet Roy Grace, he's just coming up to his 39th birthday, and we learn that 9 years ago, on his 30th birthday, his wife, Sandy, who he loved, adored, and idolized, vanished off the face of the earth. He literally had gone to work, came home expecting to go out to a birthday dinner, and she wasn't there. And for 9 years, he's been looking for her. We doesn't know. Was she murdered? Did she run off with a lover? Did she have an accident? Was she kidnapped by some maniac? And although for these past 9 years he's continued to function very effectively as a homicide detective, almost all of his spare time has been taken up with searching for Sandy, even in desperation going to mediums. And he's not been able to move on with his love life. But his mate, Graham Branson, worried about him, has started to fix him up with blind dates by putting him on a dating agency without his knowledge. And slowly throughout the series, he starts to fall in love with Cleo Mori, who runs the mortuary. And at the same time, we start to seed in little appearances of Sandy in each successive book. And we, the reader, see for ourselves that maybe she wasn't quite the most perfect person that he's always imagined. Roy Grace, like so many police officers, comes from a police background. His dad, Jack, was a copper, but only ever reaching the rank of sergeant, and sadly died before Roy achieved his high promotion and big success in the Sussex police force. Roy has a team that we meet regularly, the key members of which are Glenn Branson, who starts off as a detective sergeant. He's Roy's protege, and Roy sees a lot of his early self in Glenn, and he basically mentors him and helps his rise up through the ranks. He has on his team also Bella Moy. He has the much loved by many of my fans and highly politically incorrect Detective Sergeant Norman Potting, and he has a number of other characters who are kind of steadfastly with him. And in his personal life, as Roy evolves, he has his beloved Cleo Mori, who eventually marries, Cleo's dog Humphrey, and a character that is with us for much of the series is Roy's beloved goldfish, Marlon. In terms of what flaws does Roy have? Maybe being too nice, and one of which does get him into a lot of trouble very early on is that he does have an open mind on the paranormal. And there is a scenario right at the beginning of Dead Simple where he is pilloried by the press because he takes a shoe from a murder victim to a medium to see if she can find anything because all other avenues have failed. Although this is not unique, I have met many police officers, both here and in other countries, who when all else fails, will try any avenue, and if that means going to a clairvoyant or a medium, so be it, they'll do that. He has this very high level of emotional intelligence. He has this genuine, caring side to his personality, where he will bond with the loved ones of the victim. But he is also, like all good detectives, quite anal in terms of realizing that so many murders are solved by painstakingly piecing together hundreds, if not thousands, of pieces of that puzzle, and by good old-fashioned shoe leather. He is, in short, I think, a detective that people take to trust. If anything, if he's got any flaws at all, it's the fact that he is sometimes a bit maverick. He goes against what his bosses want. He infuriated a boss that he really didn't care for, Cassian Pugh, by constantly going against what he was told to do, but he gets results, and that's what makes him so good. Roy's journey through the series, and I'm currently finishing the 20th novel, is that he goes basically from being a really good doggy detective when we first meet him, but somebody who has a very troubled background, slowly falling in love with Cleo, moving on in his love life, marrying again, starting a new family, and moving from Brighton out into the countryside, and even having pet chickens, and seeing a, if you like, a side of nature that brings him a calming effect to his dark work. And he does get promoted, but he doesn't want to get promoted too far. And I find this is true with so many detectives. They actually enjoy being hands-on. They don't want to get promoted to the point where they're just sitting in a desk ordering people around. So Roy is in that balance point between still being a hands-on detective, but still being in quite a strong position of authority in his job. What can we expect of Roy Grace in the future? Well, I can promise you lots more cases, and I always take a subject that interests me. It takes me a year to write a Roy Grace novel, so I'm going to be spending a year of my life doing something. I want to make sure that I'm doing something that I really enjoy. So I never sit down and think, what's going to sell? I always sit down and think, what case that I'm going to have Roy Grace investigating me is going to be really fascinating for me to research. So we have all kinds of things coming up, from a murder in a Grand Hotel in Brighton to somebody who fakes their disappearance, to a crime that involves skullduggery of wills. I've always been fascinated by wills. I'm also planning a Roy Grace novel set around somebody who, if you like, almost cuckoos their nest into an old person's home to defraud them out of all their money. And I have a whole host of other big story ideas coming up as well, including a serial killer in a hospital. I hope this has given you a little insight into my character, Roy Grace. Thank you for watching, and I hope you'll long continue to read and enjoy his novels, and to catch Grace on television in the series Grace, which is about to start filming its next 4 episodes.